The boards creak under her bare feet as he drags her up. Splinters catch her skin. She stumbles, knees weak, breath shaking. The man behind her smells like rot and whiskey. His grip tightens when she tries to pull away. "No, please," she says, voice breaking. "Stand still," he growls, jerking her upright. "You're hurting me." "Good," he says. "Maybe you'll look worth something." The crowd shifts in a loose circle, boots grinding dust into the ground. No one steps forward, no one leaves. He shoves her to the center of the platform. The wood dips under her weight. She hugs her arms close, trying to disappear. The sun sits high but gives no warmth. Eyes stare. Some look away, most don't. "Look at her," the father says, spreading his arms like a showman. "Strong, quiet, obedient when she needs to be." She shakes her head. "I'm not." "Quiet," he snaps, backhanding the air near her face. She flinches anyway. Laughter flickers, thin and unsure, then dies. "Start at 10, he calls out. Silence answers him. A man near the edge shifts his hat lower. Another spits into the dirt. "She ain't livestock," someone mutters. The words drift, weak as smoke. The father hears them. His grin cuts sharp. "Everything is," he says, "you just haven't paid for it yet." He lifts the bottle in his hand and takes a long pull, wiping his mouth with the back of his wrist. 10, he repeats. "Who's got 10? The girl sways. Her voice drops to a whisper. "Don't let him." She scans the faces. Old men, young boys, women holding children close. No one answers. No one meets her eyes long enough to matter. "Please," she says again. Softer. The wind moves through the space like a held breath. A boot taps. A cough breaks and fades. The father steps closer, fingers digging into her shoulder. "Stand straight," he says. "You're costing me." "I don't want this," she says. "You don't get wants," he replies. "You get sold." He laughs, short and ugly. 10, he calls again, or I start lowering. The crowd tightens like a circle closing. A man near the back shakes his head but says nothing. Another looks at the ground. The girl's lips tremble. "Don't let him," she repeats, a thread of sound barely there, then a voice cuts through. Calm, low, "I'll buy her." Heads turn at once. The circle breaks just enough to show him. He stands a few steps back, hat low, coat dusted with travel. He does not move forward. He does not raise his voice. He just stands there looking at the man on the platform. The father blinks, then smiles wider. "Well now," he says. A bidder. He leans over the edge. "For what?" "For stopping this," the cowboy says. No change in tone, no rush in the words. The girl looks at him, eyes wide, unsure if she heard right. The father chuckles. "That ain't how this works," he says. "You want her? You pay." "Simple." "I wasn't asking," the cowboy replies. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Someone steps back. Someone else leans in. The father's smile fades a little. "You got a price," he says. "Name it." "You step down," the cowboy says. "And I get what?" "You get to keep your teeth," the cowboy says. A few heads snap toward him. The air tightens. The father lifts the bottle again, hand shaking just enough to show. "You think you scare me?" he says. "You think you can walk in here and—" "I think you've had enough," the cowboy says. The girl's breath comes fast. "Don't make him mad," she whispers. The father hears it and grips her harder. "He should be mad," he says. "He should pay." He steps closer to the edge, looking down at the cowboy. 20, he says suddenly. "You want to stop?" "Up at 20. The cowboy does not move. "No," he says. 30. The father pushes. "She's worth it. Look at her." He jerks her chin up. She winces. "Strong," he repeats. "Quiet. You won't find better. Let her go," the cowboy says. The words land flat, heavy. The father's eyes narrow. "Then you don't get her," he says. "I wasn't asking," the cowboy repeats. The silence that follows feels like a held blade. The father's grin twists into something meaner. "You think you can take her," he says. "From me?" He lifts the bottle high, glass, catching the light. "You think you can walk up here and just—" The cowboy steps forward, one pace, nothing more. "Yes," he says. The father swings. The bottle cuts through the air, fast and wild. The girl gasps, ducking without thinking. The crowd jolts, a ripple of bodies shifting back. The cowboy moves just enough. The glass misses his head by an inch and shatters against the post behind him. Silence breaks into sharp breaths. The father stumbles forward, off balance, cursing. "You son of a—" "Enough," the cowboy says. The girl drops to her knees on the platform, hands over her ears. "Stop," she whispers. Please stop. The father lunges again, empty hand now, fingers clawing. The cowboy catches his wrist mid-swing, tight, final. The two men lock there, one pushing, one holding. The father strains, teeth bared. She's mine, he spits. Everything is, the cowboy says quietly, until it isn't. The grip tightens. The father's arm trembles. The crowd watches, frozen between fear and something like relief. No one steps in, no one calls out. The girl looks up through her fingers, eyes fixed on the man who spoke. The dust hangs in the air, unmoving. Let go, the father snarls. No, the cowboy answers. The bottle hangs in the air for a fraction of a second too long, spinning like the moment itself refuses to finish. Then the cowboy steps in, not fast, not loud, just precise. His hand snaps up and catches the father's wrist before the glass can come down. The impact still lands, but not where it was meant to. Wood cracks behind them instead, sharp and dry. The father snarls, pulling back. Let go. He spits. Put it down, the cowboy says, calm, almost flat. Make me, the father answers. The crowd shifts again, tighter this time. No one speaks. No one breathes right. The cowboy twists, not enough to break, just enough to control. The father grunts, stumbling off balance. The bottle drops and rolls off the platform, glass catching dust. A dull silence spreads where the sound should have gone. Get off me, the father growls. The cowboy doesn't answer. He drives him down hard against the wooden boards. Not violent for pleasure, violent for ending. The father hits the ground with a cough and a curse. The cowboy pins his shoulder with one knee. She's not yours to sell, the cowboy says. The father laughs, broken. She's mine, he snaps back. Mine, the girl flinches at the word. Still on the platform, she doesn't move, doesn't run, doesn't know how. Her eyes stay fixed on the cowboy's back like it's the only thing not collapsing. The cowboy leans in closer to the father. She's breathing, he says. That's not ownership. A ripple goes through the crowd, small, uneasy. Like something old waking up, the father struggles under his knee. You hear that? He shouts at no one. You hear this, man? No one answers him. That silence hurts more than the shove. Boots shift on dirt. A new weight enters the edge of the circle. The sheriff steps forward, no rush. No gun drawn. Just a hand near his belt and eyes that don't settle on anyone for long. That's enough, the sheriff says. The cowboy looks up without moving his knee. For who? He asks. The sheriff stops a few paces away. The badge on his chest catches light but doesn't shine like it should. It looks tired. For all of you, the sheriff says. The father laughs again, sharp and ugly. You gonna arrest me? He calls out. Is that what this is? The sheriff doesn't answer right away. That pause stretches. Longer than it should, the cowboy watches him. That your badge talking? He asks. The sheriff exhales through his nose. It's keeping order. No, the cowboy says. It's picking sides. That lands heavier than the fight. A few heads turn away. Someone in the back steps back again, like distance might fix what they just heard. The sheriff's jaw tightens. You don't understand this town, he says. I understand enough, the cowboy replies. The father twists under the pressure, trying to wedge himself free. He's nothing, he spits. Just some drifter grabbing what ain't his. The cowboy presses down harder, not enough to break, just enough to silence movement. She's right there, he says. Say that again, looking at her. The father doesn't. He won't. The girl finally speaks again, voice small but cutting through the noise anyway. Please, don't leave me. It's not clear who she's talking to at first. The cowboy hears it. So does the sheriff. So does the crowd. The cowboy looks over his shoulder at her, just once. I'm here, he says. The sheriff steps closer now. Let him up. He orders. The cowboy doesn't move. The sheriff repeats it, slower. Let him up. The cowboy looks at him again. Then what? He asks. I handle it, the sheriff says. A bitter laugh comes from the ground. The father again. Handle it? You've been handling it for years. The sheriff ignores him, keeps his eyes on the cowboy. Let him up, he says again. The cowboy shifts slightly, just enough to speak clearly. He tries again, he says, and I don't stop him gentle next time. The sheriff's hand moves closer to his belt, not quite drawing, not quite backing down either. The girl stands up now on the platform, shaky. Don't, she whispers. Please don't. No one answers her directly. That's the worst part, the sheriff finally says, quieter. You're not from here. The cowboy nods once. Doesn't matter. It matters here, the sheriff says. The father laughs again from the ground, breathless. He's gonna shoot you, he tells the cowboy. You think he won't? The sheriff doesn't correct him. The silence stretches again. Longer this time. Heavier. Like the whole town is waiting for someone to decide what kind of place it still is. The cowboy keeps his knee in place. The girl doesn't look away from him. And the sheriff still does nothing. She stands on the wooden platform a moment longer than anyone expects. Dust clings to her ankles. Her breathing is uneven but steadying, like she's deciding something no one else can hear. I'll walk, she says. The cowboy is still holding the father down, but his grip loosens slightly at the words. He looks up at her. You don't have to, he says. She shakes her head once. Small, certain. I do if I want to live. A few people in the crowd shift, uncomfortable with that kind of clarity. The father, still half-pinned in the dirt, laughs hard through his teeth. She'll come crawling back, he says. They always do. The girl steps off the platform without looking at him. No, she says. I won't. The cowboy finally lets the father roll onto his side but doesn't stand yet. He studies her like she's a decision he didn't expect to be part of. You know what happens if you leave with me? He asks. I already know what happens if I stay, she answers. Silence presses in again. The sheriff hasn't moved since he spoke last. His hand rests near his belt, but not on it. His eyes keep flicking between the cowboy, the girl, and the man in the dirt. You take her, the sheriff says quietly. You take trouble. The cowboy stands now, slow, deliberate. He brushes dust off his knee. Looks like trouble's already here. The girl walks toward him, not running, not hesitating anymore, just moving like she's stepping out of something that already ended for her. The father spits blood into the dirt and laughs again, weaker now. She's got nowhere to go, he calls out. She'll fold. The girl stops mid-step and turns her head slightly. I already folded, she says. That's why I'm leaving. The cowboy nods once. Like that answer fits something he already feared. They start walking away from the platform. Not fast, not dramatic, just forward. The crowd parts but doesn't fully open. People still want distance without responsibility. Behind them, the sheriff's voice cuts through again. Girl! She stops immediately. The cowboy doesn't. He just slows. She turns back. The sheriff's face has changed. Less authority now. More weight. You remember who you belong to, he says. A few people in the crowd look down when he says it. Like they've heard it before too many times and never questioned it out loud. The girl stands still. Wind moves her hair across her face. No, she says. I remember who you protect. That hits harder than anything before it. The sheriff doesn't respond right away. His jaw tightens. Something in him shifts, small but visible. The cowboy waits. He doesn't call her back, doesn't tell her to hurry. He just watches her decide. The sheriff finally speaks again, quieter. You don't know what you're stepping into? She nods once. I think I do. A long pause follows. No one moves. The father, still on the ground, is now quieter, watching with narrowed eyes instead of laughter. The sheriff's voice drops lower. You think he's different? He asks, nodding slightly toward the cowboy. You think he saves people? The girl looks at the cowboy. Not romantic, not trusting, just direct. I think he stopped you, she says. The sheriff doesn't answer that. The cowboy finally turns fully toward her. We don't have to keep going together, he says. You can still turn back. She shakes her head. If I turn back, I die there, she says. If I go forward, I at least choose it. That word hangs in the air. Choose. The cowboy exhales slowly. Then you stay close, he says. You listen. You don't trust anyone fast. I don't trust anyone at all, she replies. A faint, almost invisible reaction crosses his face. Not approval, not relief. Recognition. The sheriff watches all of this like he's measuring a future he can't step into anymore. You'll regret this, he says. The girl answers without looking back. I already do. Then she starts walking again. The cowboy falls into step beside her. Not ahead, not behind. Just beside, behind them, the father pushes himself up slightly, wiping his mouth with his sleeve. He leans toward the sheriff as the crowd begins to loosen, voices starting again in low fragments. Only the sheriff hears what he says. It is not loud. It is not clear to anyone else. But the sheriff goes still. His hand drops from his belt. His eyes lock on the space where the girl just was. And for the first time, he does not follow her with his authority, only with something closer to fear. They ride out of the town without looking back. The dust behind them settles too slowly, like it doesn't want to admit the crowd is still there. The horse moves steady, controlled, hooves pressing into dry ground that feels older than anything spoken in that place. The girl sits stiff in the saddle behind the cowboy, hands tight around the edge of his coat. Her breathing is shallow, held in like she's afraid even air might be noticed. The road ahead is empty, but it doesn't feel safe. "What did he say?" the cowboy asks without turning. "Nothing," she answers too fast. "You flinched," he says. "I always do," she replies. Silence stretches between them, broken only by the horse's rhythm. The cowboy doesn't push right away. He lets the quiet sit until it starts to feel heavier than words. Then he speaks again. "Tell me." The girl looks down at her hands. Her knuckles are pale. She swallows once, hard like the words are stuck behind something she's been holding in for a long time. "He said they'd come for me anyway," she finally says. The cowboy's posture shifts slightly. Not surprise, something more careful. "Who?" he asks. "You know who runs this place," she answers. "I know men pretend to," he says, her grip tightens on his coat. "No," she whispers. "They don't pretend." The horse slows a little as the cowboy absorbs that. The road feels longer suddenly, like it's stretching away from everything they just left and into something worse. "They take girls," she says. The cowboy doesn't respond immediately. His eyes stay forward, scanning the empty land. "For what?" he asks. Her voice drops lower. "They don't say. They just don't come back the same." A pause. The wind shifts once, then dies like it's listening too. The cowboy pulls the reins slightly. The horse slows more. "You're talking about more than your father," he says. She doesn't answer that directly. "He didn't sell me," she says instead. "He was waiting." The cowboy glances back at her for the first time since they left. Waiting for what? Her eyes stay fixed somewhere far behind them. "For me to be taken," she says. So it wouldn't be his choice anymore. The words land ugly and quiet. The cowboy looks forward again, jaw tight. "And your father?" he asks. "He drinks because he knows." She says. The cowboy lets out a slow breath. "Knows what? That I was next," she says. The horse stops completely without him forcing it. It just slows into stillness, as if even it understands the weight of what was said. The cowboy sits there a moment, not speaking. The road around them feels too open now, too exposed. Then he finally says, "You sure about that?" She laughs once, but there's no humor in it. "I stopped being unsure a long time ago," she says. He looks down at the reins, then back toward the horizon. "Why didn't you leave earlier?" he asks. "I tried," she says. "He always found a reason to keep me close." "What kind of reason?" he presses. She hesitates. Her fingers tightened again. "The kind you don't argue with," she says. The cowboy goes still at that. Not fear exactly. Calculation. He turns slightly in the saddle. "Look at me," he says. She does. "Did anyone ever come for you before today?" he asks. Her voice cracks just slightly. "Not openly." That answer changes something in the air between them. Not everything, but enough. The cowboy faces forward again and nudges the horse back into motion. Slower now. Careful, like the land itself might be listening. "They'll come again," he says. "I know," she replies. A long stretch of silence follows. The kind that doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels full of something waiting. The girl leans forward slightly, voice quieter now. "You didn't have to stop," she says. "Yes," he replies. "Why?" she asks. He doesn't answer right away. But he does. It's simple. Because he didn't get to finish what he started. She looks down again. "They usually do," she says. The cowboy grips the reins a little tighter. Not this time. The road bends slightly, opening toward a low ridge in the distance. The land looks the same in every direction, but something about it feels less empty now. Like it's being watched from somewhere it refuses to show. Behind them, Far back on the road they came from, a shape appears. At first, it is just a break in the dust. Then it becomes a rider. The girl feels it before she sees it. Her body stiffens. "Someone's there," she says. The cowboy doesn't look back immediately. "I know," he replies. The rider is still distant, but moving steady, not fast, not hesitant. The girl grips the saddle tighter. "Is it him?" she asks. The cowboy finally glances over his shoulder. He doesn't answer right away. Then he says quietly, "No." The rider keeps coming. The rider behind them becomes 2, then 3. Dust rises in thin columns along the road like the land itself is marking where they came from. The cowboy doesn't slow the horse. He only listens. "They're following," the girl says, voice tight now. "I see them," he answers. The horse keeps moving, but the rhythm changes. Not panic. Awareness. "How many?" she asks. The cowboy glances back once, quick and controlled. "Enough." The girl shifts closer into him without thinking, fingers digging harder into his coat. "They don't stop," she says. "No," he replies. "They usually don't." The riders behind them spread slightly, not rushing, just closing distance in a way that feels practiced. Like they already know how this ends, the girl's breath turns shallow again. "It's him," she whispers. The cowboy doesn't ask who right away. He already feels the weight in her voice. "Who?" he says anyway. She swallows. Her eyes stay forward, but her voice drops like she's afraid the air will carry it too far. "The one the sheriff answers to." The cowboy's grip on the reins tightens slightly. "Say it." The riders behind them are closer now. Not close enough to fire. Close enough to want them to know they are there. The girl hesitates. Just for a second. Then she says it, "Graves." The cowboy goes still for a fraction of a moment, just enough for the horse to feel it and flick its ears back. "Graves," he repeats. She nods once. "Yes." The name sits between them like something already paid for. The cowboy exhales slowly through his nose. "I've heard it," he says. "You've heard wrong," she replies quickly. "You've heard whispers, not what he is." Behind them, the riders shift again. One of them pulls slightly ahead, testing distance. The cowboy adjusts the horse without breaking stride. "Graves owns the land," the girl says. "The law, the Graves too." A faint, humorless sound comes from the cowboy. "Fitting name," he says. She doesn't react to that. She keeps going, like once the words start, they don't stop easily. They say he keeps records. The cowboy glances back again. The riders are clearer now. Dust, horses, shapes of men who don't speak. "Of what?" he asks. "Of who owes him," she says. "And who disappears." That last word lands heavier than the others. The cowboy doesn't respond immediately. His eyes stay forward, but something in his expression shifts like a map in his head just got darker. The horse's pace steadies again, but the air around them feels tighter. "Sheriff works for him," the girl adds. "That much I figured," the cowboy says. "No," she says quickly, "not works." Answers the cowboy looks at her briefly. "Difference matters," he says. "It does here," she replies. The riders behind them close a little more. One of them raises a hand, not signaling anything friendly, just adjusting grip. The girl's voice lowers. "They won't stop," she says. "They will," the cowboy replies. "How?" she asks. He doesn't answer that immediately. A shot cracks through the air. The sound splits the space between them. Dirt kicks up near the horse's back leg. The animal jolts but keeps moving. "Hold on," the cowboy says. The girl tightens her grip instantly. "I'm not letting go," she says. Another shot follows. Closer this time, not random. Testing, the cowboy shifts his weight in the saddle, guiding the horse slightly off the straight line of the road. "They're hurting us," he mutters. The girl hears it. "Where?" she asks. "Somewhere they can close it," he says. She looks back now, fully this time. The riders are clearer. 3, maybe 4. "Enough. They always do this," she says. "Do what?" he asks. "Make it look like there's nowhere else," she replies. The cowboy's jaw tightens. "There's always somewhere," he says. A third shot cracks. Closer again. The horse flinches but doesn't break. The girl leans forward into him, voice barely steady. "Graves doesn't send men unless he already owns the outcome," she says. "Then he's wrong," the cowboy replies. She shakes her head against his back. He's never wrong, that lands differently. Not fear. History, the cowboy pulls the reins slightly, angling the horse toward a rougher stretch of ground. We'll see. He says the girl looks back one more time. The riders are still there, still coming, not rushing, not stopping, like they know the road belongs to them. Another shot rings out, and this time the dust rises closer than before. The girl presses tighter against him. They're not alone, she says suddenly. The cowboy doesn't ask how she knows. He just hears it in her voice. Neither are we, he says. The wind picks up again, carrying dust forward and back at the same time, like the land can't decide which side it's on. And behind them, the riders keep coming. The road breaks open behind them with the sound of gunfire. Sand kicks up around the horse's legs as the cowboy yanks the reins hard. "Get down," he shouts. Another shot cracks close enough to split the air beside them. The girl clings tighter, eyes wide but not closing, not once. "Why are they shooting?" she asks. "Because you matter," he says without looking back. "That doesn't make sense," she says. "It does to them," he replies. A rider appears on their left, pulling closer through dust and wind. The cowboy shifts his weight and draws his weapon in one smooth motion. "Get ready," he says. The rider raises his gun. No warning, no hesitation, just intent. The cowboy fires, a single shot. The rider jerks backward, then falls from the saddle into the dirt. Everything changes sound. The horse keeps moving, but the world feels slower now. The girl stares at the fallen man without blinking. "You killed him," she says. "Yes," he answers. "You didn't hesitate," she says. "No," he replies. Another rider fires and misses wide. Dirt explodes near them. "Should I be scared of you?" she asks suddenly. He looks at her for a brief second while reloading. "You should be scared of what I'm willing to do next," he says. The gunfire slows for a moment as the riders regroup. "I'm not scared," she says quietly. That worries him more than the gunfire. He doesn't say it. They ride through a narrowing pass where rocks close in on both sides. The echo of hooves becomes trapped sound. "Stay close," he says. No matter what she replies, another shot hits rock above them. Fragments rain down. The cowboy pulls her lower. "We're not done yet," he says. They move deeper into terrain that feels less like road and more like trap. The girl looks back again. "They won't stop," she says. "They always do," he replies. He wipes blood from his sleeve, though none of it is his. "First time?" she asks. "Yes," he says. "Not the last," he adds. They hear horses again behind them, closer than before. "How many now?" she asks. "More," he says. "Always more," she whispers. "You don't understand," she says. "I'm starting to," he replies. "Graves doesn't send riders for fun," she says. "Then why?" he asks. "To mark who can be erased," she says. "That's not power," he says. "It is here," she replies. They crest a ridge and see more riders far behind the first group. "That's more," she says. "I see them," he replies. "We're surrounded," she asks. "Not yet," he says. He thinks about the man he shot and how quickly it ended. "Didn't feel like anything," he says quietly. "It will," she replies. "Why didn't you hesitate?" she asks. "Because hesitation gets people killed," he says. "You learned that how?" she asks. "By losing time I couldn't afford," he replies. They hear the horses again, closer now. Louder now. "Then we run?" she asks. "No," he says. "Then what?" she asks. "We finish the ride," he says. The ridge ahead narrows into a choke point where rock walls force the path thin. "Bad place," she says. "Only one way through," he replies. "And they know it," she adds. They slow without meaning to as the choke point approaches. "Smart," I says, "or planned," she replies. "Same thing," he says. "I didn't choose this," she says. "None of us did," he replies. "They chose us anyway," she whispers. He grips reins tighter. Behind them riders are closer. "Now," he says quietly. She leans in. "I'm here," she says. "Good," he replies. The first rider enters the choke point behind them. He doesn't slow. "Neither do we," the cowboy says. "Tell me you're ready," he says. "I am," she replies. "Even now?" he asks. "Especially now," she says. The riders begin to funnel into the narrow pass. "This is where it ends for some," she says. "Maybe," he replies. "Not us," she says. He nods once. Then they ride into the choke point together. The sound of hooves replies behind them. "No turning back now," she says. "There never was," he replies. They enter the shadow of the rocks. The air changes. Behind them, the riders close the gap. "Closer," she whispers. "Hold steady," he says. I am, she replies. The narrow pass swallows the sound of pursuit. They disappear into shadowed rock as the riders follow. She doesn't look back. Neither does he. We move, he says. We survive, she replies. The echo of hooves fades into the rock corridor as Graves' riders enter after them. No one is alone out here anymore. They ride into the dark, knowing the hunt has only begun. No way out now. The house sits off the road like it was placed there and forgotten on purpose. No smoke, no movement. Just wood, darkened by weather and time, leaning slightly as if listening. The riders are gone for now, but the air still feels hunted. We stay here, the cowboy says, already dismounting. The girl doesn't move right away. She looks at the structure like it's looking back at her. This place is wrong, she says. It's just wood and nails, he replies, scanning the edges, the windows, the tree line. No, she whispers. It remembers. He pauses at that, then pushes the door open. It creaks too long, too loud. Like it hasn't been opened in years, or like it didn't want to open at all. Inside is dim light and dust. A table sits crooked. Chairs are overturned. A cold fireplace holds old ash that never got cleaned out properly. Everything feels paused mid-life. Hello, the cowboy calls. No answer at first. Only the house settling around them. Then a voice comes from somewhere deeper inside. Too late to leave. The girl stiffens instantly. The cowboy doesn't draw, but his hand shifts closer to his side. Who's there? He asks. A slow step sounds from the back room. Then another. A woman emerges into the doorway of the next room like she's been standing just out of sight for a long time. Not hiding fast, just existing there. She looks at them like she already knows the answer to everything she's about to say. You brought her here? She asks the cowboy. I needed shelter, he says. The woman lets out a short, dry laugh. You brought her to a grave, she replies. The word lands heavy in the room. The girl steps slightly forward without realizing it. What happened here, she asks. The woman tilts her head, studying her. What always happens, she says. That's not an answer, the cowboy says. It is, the woman replies. If you've lived long enough. The house groans again. Wood shifting in the walls like something inside it is still trying to breathe. The girl takes another step. Say it, she demands, voice sharper than before. The woman looks at her for a long moment. They take pieces, she says. Not all at once. The cowboy's eyes narrow slightly. Graves, he says under his breath. The woman hears it. Of course she does. Everyone here knows that name before it's spoken. The girl goes still. They take pieces, the woman repeats. And when you notice, you're already missing enough that it's too late to run. Silence spreads through the room. Even the air feels trapped. The girl swallows hard. Girls, she says quietly. The woman nods once. Women, boys. Whoever fits the shape of what they need that week. The cowboy scans the room again, slower now. Not for threats, for signs. Scratches on the floor. Burn marks near the fireplace. Marks that don't belong to time alone. You were here when it happened, he says. I was here when it started. The woman corrects. The girl's voice drops. Why are you still here? The woman laughs again, but there's nothing dry about it this time. It's tired. Where would I go? She asks. The cowboy looks at her more closely now. You survived, he says. Some of me did, she replies. The girl's hands start shaking slightly. She hides it by gripping her own sleeves. What do you mean, pieces? She asks again. Softer now. The woman steps closer, slow and careful, like approaching something skittish. I mean, you don't always come back whole, she says. The girl's breath catches. The cowboy shifts his stance, like he's preparing for something that isn't physical. The woman looks directly at the girl now. They don't need to take everything, she says. They only need enough to make you stop being someone who fights back. The girl takes a step back without realizing it. The woman continues, voice steady but low. Sometimes it's memory. Sometimes it's voice. Sometimes it's the part of you that says no and means it. The girl whispers, no. The woman nods slowly. The cowboy's jaw tightens. And Graves, he asks. The woman's expression changes slightly at the name. Not fear exactly. Something older. Familiar. He doesn't do it himself, she says. He never has to. The girl looks around the room again, suddenly seeing it differently. Not abandoned, left behind. "I've been here before," she says. The woman stops. The cowboy turns toward her immediately. "What did you say?" The girl presses a hand to her temple like something is trying to surface through pressure. I don't remember," she says. The woman takes a slow step back, eyes narrowing. "That's not possible," she says quietly. The girl shakes her head harder now. "I don't remember," she repeats, but her voice is breaking on the edges of it. The cowboy moves closer to her. "Look at me," he says. She does, but she's not fully there. The woman watches both of them now, tension rising in her posture. "How long have you been outside?" she asks the cowboy. "A few days," he answers. The woman shakes her head slightly. Then she shouldn't be remembering anything at all. The girl suddenly grips her arm. "I've seen this house," she says. "I've seen the door. I've heard that laugh." The woman goes still. The cowboy lowers his voice. "When?" he asks. The girl's eyes flick around the room again, faster now. "I don't know," she says. "I don't know when." The woman steps closer again, but this time more carefully. "What's your name?" she asks softly. The girl opens her mouth and hesitates. That hesitation says more than words ever could. The cowboy notices it instantly. The room feels smaller all of a sudden, like the house is leaning in to listen. Outside, somewhere far off, a distant sound of hooves rolls through the land again. Not close yet, but coming. The house feels tighter now, like the walls have leaned in after hearing too much. The distant sound of hooves is gone, but what replaced it is worse. Memory the girl stands in the middle of the room, breathing uneven. The woman doesn't move closer anymore. She just watches, like she already knows where this is going. "You remember now?" the woman asks. The girl swallows. Her eyes don't focus on any one thing. "I was small," she says slowly. "There was a room." The cowboy turns toward her fully now. "What room?" Her voice shakes. "Dark. Always dark. I remember hands not hurting, just holding me still." The woman answers before she finishes. "Basement." The girl flinches at the word like it hit skin instead of air. The woman nods once. "You were chosen." Silence drops hard in the room. The girl stares at her. "For what?" she asks. The woman's answer is immediate. Too calm. Too practiced. "For surviving." "That doesn't make sense," the girl says, almost angry now. The woman doesn't blink. "It doesn't have to." The cowboy steps forward slightly, placing himself between the girl and the woman without fully realizing it. "Why her?" he asks. The woman finally looks at him directly, not defensive, not emotional. "Just certain. Because she didn't break," she says. The room goes still in a way that feels physical. The girl shakes her head slowly, like she's trying to push the words out of her. "I did," she says. "I did break." The woman tilts her head slightly. "No," she replies. "You didn't stay broken." The cowboy looks at the girl now, something shifting in his expression. Not confusion. Reassessment. The girl steps back once, pressing her hand against the edge of a table for balance. "I don't remember all of it," she says. "I remember waiting. I remember thinking I was supposed to be somewhere else." The woman nods again. "That's the mark," she says. The cowboy's voice tightens. "What mark?" The woman finally moves, just slightly, pointing not at the girl's body but at something unseen around her. "Not on skin," she says. "On pattern." The girl looks down at herself instinctively. "I don't understand," she whispers. "You were tested," the woman says, "long before your father started drinking himself into silence." The girl stiffens. "My father." The woman doesn't soften it. "He knew." The cowboy's hand curls slightly at his side. "Knew what exactly?" The woman exhales slowly. "That she was already on their list." The girl's breath catches hard. "List?" The woman nods. "Graves doesn't pick randomly. He watches. He waits. He marks who can survive what others can't." The cowboy's eyes narrow. "And if they survive?" The woman looks at the girl again. "Then they become useful." The word lands wrong in the room. Too clean for what it means. The girl shakes her head harder now. "No," she says. "No, I was just a child." The woman's voice doesn't change. Children are easier to shape. The cowboy steps closer to the woman now. "You're saying he was training her?" he asks. "I'm saying he was measuring her." the woman replies. The girl suddenly grips her own arms like she's trying to hold herself together physically. "Why didn't my father stop it?" she asks, voice cracking. The woman looks at her with something almost close to pity. "He didn't stop it," she says. "He postponed it." The room feels colder. The girl stares at her. "He sold me," she whispers. The woman shakes her head once. "He delayed your delivery." The cowboy's voice drops. "Same thing." The woman nods slightly. "Yes." A long silence spreads. The house creaks again, but softer now, like it's listening without needing to interrupt. The girl's eyes fill, but she doesn't cry yet. She just stands there, like her body hasn't decided what to do with the truth. The cowboy looks at her. "You didn't know any of this?" he asks. She shakes her head quickly. "No." The woman speaks again, quieter now. "That's the point." The girl suddenly steps forward, voice rising. "Then why now?" she asks. "Why bring it back now?" The woman answers without hesitation. "Because you left the system. That stops everything." The cowboy turns slightly. "Explain," he says. The woman gestures vaguely toward the door, toward the world outside. "Once you step out of reach, everything they built to hold you starts reacting." The girl whispers, "I don't want any of this." "Too late to want," she says. The cowboy watches the girl carefully now. "What happens next?" he asks the woman. The woman looks between them. "Now they correct it," she says. The girl's voice drops to almost nothing. "Correct what?" The woman answers simply. "That you got away." The house feels suddenly too quiet after that. The girl's lips tremble. She looks at the cowboy, then away, then down at the floor like it might open and explain everything differently. "I wish I had," she says softly. The cowboy hears it clearly. "What?" he asks. She doesn't look up. "Broken," she says. The words hang there, heavy and small at the same time. The woman doesn't respond. The cowboy doesn't either. Outside, somewhere far beyond the walls, a faint sound returns, hooves again, closer than before. The house goes still before the knock even comes, not loud, not rushed. Just a single sound at the door, like it already owns the right to be heard. The cowboy doesn't reach for his weapon immediately. He just shifts his stance. The girl moves closer behind him without thinking. The woman in the corner doesn't move at all. The door opens. Graves steps inside like he's already been there. No dust on his boots, no hurry in his posture. His coat hangs clean, too clean for the road outside. He looks around the room once, not impressed, not surprised. "You've made this difficult," he says. The cowboy watches him carefully. "You didn't knock like a man who's worried," he replies. Graves gives a small, almost polite smile. "I'm not." A silence stretches, heavy but controlled. The cowboy glances past him toward the door. "No guards?" he asks. Graves shakes his head slightly. "I don't need them." The girl stiffens behind the cowboy, but she doesn't speak yet. The cowboy's voice stays flat. "You sent men." Graves nods once. "They were replaceable." That word lands wrong in the room. The woman in the corner finally shifts her gaze to him, but still says nothing. The girl's breathing turns shallow again. Her fingers curl into the fabric of the cowboy's coat. Graves looks at her now, directly. "You remember me," he says. The girl doesn't answer immediately. Her eyes don't leave him, but something inside her tightens. "I remember the door," she says. Graves nods. Like that is exactly what he expected. "Good," he replies. "Then you know what you're worth." The girl shakes her head once, sharp. "I'm not yours." Graves doesn't react quickly. He just studies her, like a man reading something he already wrote. "Everything here is," he says. The cowboy steps forward slightly, putting himself between them without fully blocking her. "Not me," he says. Graves finally looks at him more directly. "You're new," he says. "I'm standing here." The cowboy replies. Graves' smile returns, faint but certain. "Yes," he says, "for now." The girl's voice trembles but stays up. "You don't own me," she says again. Graves tilts his head slightly. "Ownership is a simple word," he says. "It confuses people who think they're free." The woman in the corner speaks for the first time since he entered. "You shouldn't be here," she says. Graves doesn't look at her. "Yet I am." The cowboy's hand shifts slightly closer to his weapon. "Sheriff knows you're here," he asks. Graves exhales through his nose, almost amused. The sheriff knows where I am before I do, he says. That makes the room colder. The girl looks up at him fully now. He answers to you, she says. Graves nods once. He serves structure. The cowboy steps a fraction closer. That's not what service is, he says. Graves finally meets his eyes. It is when you don't have options. Silence stretches again, not empty. Pressurized, the girl suddenly speaks, voice breaking slightly but clearer than before. You were there, she says. Graves turns back to her. I was. I was small, she says. I remember a place, a room that didn't have corners I could trust. Graves doesn't deny it, doesn't confirm it either. He just listens. You remember me, he says again. I remember the fear, she replies. He nods slightly. Good, he says. That means it worked. The cowboy's jaw tightens. Worked for what, he asks. Graves finally walks deeper into the room, slow and unhurried. He doesn't treat it like a confrontation, more like inspection. Control, he says simply. The girl shakes her head harder. I'm not part of this, she says. Graves stops a few steps away from her, close enough now that the air between them feels occupied. You are the part that matters most, he says. The cowboy moves again, sharper this time. Back away, he warns. Graves glances at him. Or what? He asks calmly. The question hangs there without needing urgency. The cowboy doesn't answer immediately. That hesitation is enough for Graves to smile again. You see, Graves says softly. That's why you're here too. The girl's breathing quickens. I didn't choose any of this, she says. Graves nods. No one does, he replies. The woman in the corner finally stands a little straighter. You're pushing them into something you can't control, she says. Graves finally acknowledges her presence with a glance. Everything is controlled, he says. You just don't always see the hand. The cowboy steps forward one more time. You don't control me, he says. Graves studies him for a long moment. Then his smile softens, almost thoughtful. Not yet, he says. That word sits in the center of the room like a hook. The girl looks between them, breath unsteady, realization building in her face like something cracking open slowly. And outside, somewhere beyond the walls, the sound of distant hooves finally stops. Like the riders are waiting now too. The air inside the house changes before the door even opens again. Not fear this time. Authority, heavier, familiar. Boots step onto the threshold with no rush, no hesitation, like they've been rehearsing this walk for years. The sheriff enters. His badge catches the light once, then dulls again. His face is set, but not steady. Like something in him has already cracked and is holding shape out of habit. Step away, the sheriff says. The cowboy doesn't move immediately. To who? He asks. The sheriff's eyes lock on him. To me. A pause stretches between them. The girl stands behind the cowboy, rigid, watching the sheriff like she's trying to understand which version of him is real. The cowboy exhales slowly. You gonna finish what you didn't start? He asks. The sheriff doesn't answer right away. That hesitation is louder than anything else in the room. Graves stands slightly off to the side, calm as ever, watching like none of this belongs to urgency, like it all belongs to him regardless of outcome. The woman in the corner doesn't speak. She just watches the sheriff now. The girl's voice breaks through the tension. Choose, she says. Everyone turns slightly toward her, but she doesn't back down. Silence follows immediately after her word. Thick. Pressing the sheriff's jaw tightens. His hand hovers near his belt, not drawing yet, not relaxing either. His eyes move between Graves, the cowboy, and the girl. Graves speaks softly, almost gently. You've already been choosing, he says. The sheriff's eyes flick to him. I've been surviving, the sheriff replies. Graves nods slightly. Same thing, he says. The cowboy shifts his weight. No, he says, not even close. The sheriff ignores him for a moment longer than he should. That moment costs him something in the room. Trust, maybe. Or the illusion of control. The girl takes a step forward, voice steadier now. You said you keep order, she says to the sheriff. The sheriff looks at her. I do, he says. Then look at what's here, she replies. That forces him to glance around the room again. The house, the woman in the corner, the cowboy standing between her and Graves. Graves himself, watching like he's already written the ending. The sheriff's breathing changes slightly. Graves speaks again, still calm. "Order is just agreement," he says. "You've been enforcing mine for a long time." The sheriff's hand twitches near his weapon. "No," he says. But it sounds less certain than before. The cowboy steps half a pace forward. "You've been covering it," he says. The sheriff snaps his attention back to him. "You don't know what I've had to do," he says. The cowboy replies immediately. "Then say it." That stops him. Silence drops again, but different now. Not empty. Splitting, the girl's voice comes quieter but sharper in meaning. "You already chose," she says to the sheriff. The sheriff looks at her, really looks. Like he's seeing what this has become, not what it was supposed to be. Graves shifts his stance slightly for the first time. A small movement, but it tightens the room. "Careful," Graves says softly. Not a warning, a reminder. The sheriff hears it. Something in him finally decides. His hand moves not toward the cowboy. Toward Graves, the entire room freezes at once. The sheriff draws his gun in one clean motion and points it directly at Graves. The cowboy doesn't react fast. He just watches. The girl gasps quietly behind him. The woman in the corner goes still in a way that feels almost relieved. Graves doesn't move at all. He only looks at the sheriff, expression unchanged. "You should have stayed quiet," Graves says. The sheriff's hand shakes slightly, but the gun stays up. "I already did too long," he replies. A long silence stretches between them. The cowboy stays ready, but doesn't intervene. Not yet. Not unless it becomes necessary. Graves finally exhales, almost like disappointment. "You think this changes anything?" he says. "It does for me," the sheriff replies. The girl watches the sheriff's face, searching for something she never had reason to look for before. Not authority, not law, choice. Graves tilts his head slightly. "And after?" he asks. The sheriff doesn't answer. That the cowboy speaks quietly now. "Careful," he says to the sheriff. "You don't get a second chance at this kind of line." The sheriff keeps the gun steady. His voice drops lower. "Maybe I'm done asking for chances," he says. Graves watches him like a man observing weather turn. Outside, faint but unmistakable, hoofbeats begin again. Not distant this time, closer. The shot that should have changed everything never fully lands in the room. It hangs there instead, suspended in breath and tension, as if even sound is waiting to see who survives the moment. The sheriff's gun is still aimed at Graves. Graves still doesn't move. The cowboy is already shifting position, ready for the wrong kind of ending. The girl stands frozen between them all, caught in something too large to understand but too close to escape. Then the woman in the corner speaks. "Basement," she says quietly. Everyone turns. The sheriff's eyes flick toward her. "What's in the basement?" he asks. Still not lowering the gun, the woman's answer is immediate. "Everything." A silence follows that feels heavier than the gun in the sheriff's hand. The cowboy breaks it first. "Where?" he asks. The woman nods toward the floorboards near the back of the room. "Under," she says. Graves finally moves. Not to stop them, just to watch. Like this is a story he already knows the ending to. The cowboy steps forward, presses against the floor seam, finds the latch. It resists for a moment, then gives with a sharp wooden groan. The air shifts immediately as the hidden space opens below. Darkness rises from it like something breathing out. The girl edges closer behind him. "I don't want to see this," she whispers. "You need to." He pulls the hatch wider. A staircase drops into the earth. Cold air comes up, carrying old paper, dust, and something worse. Not decay exactly. Memory that was never allowed to finish. The sheriff lowers his gun slightly without realizing it. Graves watches them descend with quiet patience. They go down one by one. The basement is not empty. It is arranged. Shelves line the walls. Not cluttered, cataloged. Books stacked in order. Boxes labeled in careful handwriting. Papers tied in bundles like they were meant to be reviewed, not hidden. The girl steps in first, eyes scanning too fast. "No," she says under her breath. The cowboy follows, then stops, points of names, dates, places that don't exist on maps. The girl reaches out toward one stack of papers. then pulls her hand back like it burned her without contact. Girls, she whispers. The cowboy doesn't ask, he already sees it. Records of people who were never meant to be counted twice. The sheriff stands at the bottom of the stairs now, looking at it all without speaking. Graves remains at the top, still above ground, still detached. The woman's voice echoes from behind them. "Now you understand," she says. The girl shakes her head slightly, moving from shelf to shelf. "This isn't real," she says. "It is," the woman replies. The cowboy picks up a page, reads it. His face tightens, not in shock, but recognition of scale. "This is bigger than the town," he says. The sheriff finally speaks. "I didn't know all of this," he says. The cowboy looks at him. "You knew enough." The sheriff doesn't deny it. The girl stops in front of a ledger thicker than the rest. Her fingers hover over it. "My name," she says slowly. The cowboy turns toward her immediately. "Don't," he warns, but she opens it anyway. Her hand trembles as she flips pages. There it is, not just her name. Versions of it. Notes. Marks. Dates that don't align with anything she remembers. Her breath catches hard. "I was tracked," she says. The woman nods once. "You were archived," she corrects. The girl steps back like the word hit her physically. "Why keep this?" she asks. The woman answers simply. Control doesn't forget. Above them, Graves finally speaks again, voice calm but sharper now. "You think this is truth," he says. "It's leverage." The cowboy looks up toward him. "It's people," he says. Graves shakes his head slightly. "It's evidence of ownership," he replies. The girl suddenly grabs a stack of papers, ripping them loose. "No," she says. "No more." The sheriff watches her for a long second, then looks at Graves. Something in him is breaking into decision again. "Burn it," the cowboy says quietly. The girl freezes. "No," she says immediately. "People need to know." The cowboy meets her eyes. "They won't survive knowing," he says. That stops her. Not because she agrees. Because she understands he might be right. The silence in the basement tightens. The sheriff slowly lowers his gun fully now. Graves watches him do it. The girl's hands shake as she pulls a match from her pocket. No one asks where she got it. No one stops her fast enough to matter. "You don't have to," the cowboy says softly. "I do," she replies. Her voice is barely steady. She strikes it. The flame appears small at first, almost fragile. She holds it over the papers. Her breath shakes. "This ends here," she whispers. Then she drops it. Fire takes fast, too fast. Paper curls, blackens, rises into heat and light that fills the basement like it was waiting for permission. The cowboy pulls her back instinctively as the flames spread along shelves. The sheriff steps up the stairs. Graves finally reacts. For the first time, his calm breaks. "You think fire frees you," he calls down. The girl looks up through smoke and rising heat. Her face is lit by burning records of lives that were never allowed to continue cleanly. "No," she says. "It frees them." The fire climbs higher, consuming names, dates, control, order written in ink. Graves stands at the top, watching it burn. And for the first time, he is not in control of what disappears. The fire still breathes behind them, even after they climb out of the basement. Smoke seeps through the floorboards like the house is remembering everything it was forced to hold. Outside, the night feels too wide after what was contained inside it. The cowboy stands in the yard first, scanning the dark edges of the land. No riders, no immediate movement, only silence that feels earned, not given. "It's over," he says. The girl steps out slowly behind him. Ash clings faintly to her sleeves. Her eyes are distant, still carrying the weight of names that no longer exist on paper. "No," she replies. "It's just quieter." He doesn't argue. He understands the difference more than he wants to. Behind them, the sheriff lies near the edge of the porch steps. He didn't make it out of the house cleanly. Blood spreads slowly beneath him, dark against dust and old wood. He's still conscious when the girl looks at him. "I tried," the sheriff says. His voice is thin now. Not commanding, not defensive, just tired. The cowboy stands a few steps away, watching but not interfering. The girl moves closer, but not too close. "Not anymore." "You waited too long," she says. The sheriff lets out a faint breath that might almost be a laugh if it had more air behind it. I know, he replies. Silence stretches between them. Not dramatic, just final. The sheriff's eyes drift toward the burning house behind them. I thought, he starts then stops. The girl waits, but he doesn't finish. His hand twitches once against the dirt. Then stills, the light in his eyes goes out without ceremony, no last speech, no redemption. Just absence. The fire crackles louder for a moment, like it acknowledges what changed. The girl doesn't look away immediately. She just stands there, breathing slowly, as if waiting for something to tell her how to feel. Nothing does. The cowboy finally breaks the silence. We should move, he says. She doesn't answer right away. Her eyes stay on the burning house, on the place where records turn to ash, where names stop being controlled by ink. Everything in there is gone, she says quietly. Not everything, he replies. That makes her look at him. He doesn't soften it. He just states it like fact. She understands what he means. What stays is not paper. It's memory, it's people, it's her. The wind shifts slightly, carrying ash out into the dark fields. It drifts like something trying to leave but not fully allowed to. The cowboy takes a step toward the horse, then pauses. He looks back at her instead. You can come with me, he says. She watches the fire a moment longer. The heat reflects in her eyes, but she doesn't move toward it or away from it. I won't be owned again, she says. I didn't say that, he replies. Her gaze flicks to him, careful, testing. I know, she says. Another pause. The fire behind them collapses inward slightly as a beam gives way. Sparks rise into the sky like brief memories trying to escape. The girl exhales slowly. Her shoulders drop just a fraction. But I'll walk beside you, she says. The cowboy nods once. Not relief, not victory, just acceptance. Good, he says. They stand there for a moment longer, not as rescuer and rescued, not as owner and owned, but something unfinished and unclaimed. The horse shifts its weight in the dark, waiting. The world beyond the burning house is quiet again, but not clean. Nothing is clean anymore. The girl finally turns away from the fire. Not because she forgot it, because she didn't. They walk away from the burning house without looking back again. The fire shrinks behind them into something smaller, less important with distance, but it still glows in the edges of the night like a warning that refuses to fully disappear. The cowboy leads the horse beside them now, not mounted. The girl walks on her own, steps steady but not easy. Dust rises around their feet, soft and constant, like the land is trying to erase what just happened and failing. After a long stretch of silence, the cowboy finally speaks. What's your name? He asks. She doesn't answer immediately. The question lands differently than anything before it, not as declaimed. Something simpler, something sharper. She keeps walking. Long pause. Long enough that the night feels like it might move on without her answer. My father's name isn't mine, she says at last. The cowboy glances at her briefly. No, he agrees. She exhales slowly, like she's testing whether the air belongs to her now. Graves doesn't get one either. The cowboy nods once. Good. They continue forward. The road ahead is unclear, but it is open. That alone feels different from everything behind them. The girl slows slightly, then stops. The cowboy stops too, turning just enough to face her, without crowding her. She looks down at her hands first, then out toward the dark land stretching ahead. The fire is gone now behind them. Only memory remains of it. She breathes in once, deeper than before. Then I choose, she says. The cowboy doesn't interrupt. He waits. Silence holds between them, not heavy now, but present. She lifts her head. My name is Mercy, she says. The words don't sound practiced. They sound claimed, like something spoken for the first time without permission needed. The cowboy studies her for a moment, not judging, not correcting, just taking it in like truth that arrived late but fully formed. He nods. Fits, he says. Mercy gives a faint, almost tired breath that might become a laugh someday. But not yet. Not yet, she says, but it will. The cowboy looks ahead again toward the road that keeps going whether they want it to or not. Yeah, he says quietly. It will. They start walking again. Not as something owned, not as something lost, just as two people moving forward through a land that remembers everything, even when the fire tries to forget it. They return when the town is all ready to pretend it survived without them. Same road, same dust, same wooden platform standing crooked in the center, like a memory that refused to fall down properly. But everything around it feels off now. Quieter in a way that isn't peace. The cowboy stops at the edge of the clearing. Mercy doesn't stop with him. She keeps walking until she is standing right in front of the platform. No hesitation, no flinch. The wood creaks under a wind that feels older than the people who built it. She steps up onto it, slow, certain. Not like before, not like someone being dragged. Like someone returning something they never agreed to hold. The cowboy stays on the ground, watching her. His hand rests near his belt, but not tense, not ready for violence, ready for whatever this is becoming. Mercy stands in the center of the platform, space around her. No father, no crowd, no voices offering value. Just air. She looks out over the town, the same town, but not the same eyes watching her. Something has changed in them. Not forgiveness, not innocence, awareness. She takes a breath. Say a price, she whispers. Her voice carries, but it doesn't land the way it once did. No one answers. Not even a shift in the crowd that has gathered at the edges. Silence holds steady. The cowboy steps forward slightly. "What are you doing?" he asks. Mercy doesn't look back at him yet. "Ending it," she says. The words are simple. No weight of drama, just finality. The cowboy studies her. "This won't end anything," he says. She finally turns her head slightly toward him. "It already did," she replies. A pause stretches between them. The platform creaks again, like it's unsure whether it still has a purpose. Mercy looks out at the town again, at the space where it all began. At the place where she was once placed like something to be measured. She speaks again, louder now. No one bids anymore. The words do not echo the way they once would have. They settle instead. Like they are being accepted. The wind moves through the town, slow and uneven. It touches faces at the edge of the crowd. People don't step forward. They don't step back either. They just watch. Not the way they used to. Not with ownership, not with hunger. With recognition, the cowboy's voice lowers. "You sure about this?" he asks. Mercy looks at him now, fully. "I already lived what happens when I'm not," she says. That is enough answer for him. He nods once. Not agreement. Understanding the sheriff is gone. Graves is gone from reach, if not from consequence. The records burned. The names erased from paper, but not from people. Nothing is fixed, but something is cracked open. Mercy steps forward on the platform edge. Then down, no stumble, no fear, just movement. She lands on the ground beside the cowboy. Dust rises briefly around her boots, then settles. The platform stays behind them, empty again. But it no longer feels like a stage. It feels like something that failed to hold its shape. The town watches as she walks forward, not quickly, not escaping. Just going, the cowboy falls into step beside her without a word. They do not look back, the crowd does not follow. No voice calls her name, no hand reaches for her. For the first time, absence is not permission. It is restraint. They pass the edge of the gathering, where the road begins to widen again into open land. The wind picks up slightly, moving through dust and dry grass, carrying the sound of nothing trying to become something again. Mercy keeps walking, not owned, not hunted, not offered. Just moving, the cowboy glances at her once, then forward again. "You think it's done?" he asks quietly. Mercy shakes her head once. "No," she says. "But it's different." The road stretches ahead of them, long and unclaimed. Behind them, the platform stands empty in the center of a town that no longer knows exactly what it is supposed to do with it. And this time, no one stops her.